major U-turns regarding structural change. All of that has become commonplace. And the reasons for this chaos? Political pressure that something be seen to be done has resulted in more and more short-term thinking, announcement of measures the operational feasibility of which have not been carefully thought through, policy making on the hoof, often followed by recantation. None of which is destined to encourage either public understanding or confidence, both of which are, in my judgment, essential, but in increasingly short supply. We have a form of criminal justice or penal policy iatrogenesis. That is, the politically informed policy-making process is making matters worse, not better. This process involves distinctly unproductive feedback loops with serious consequences for the aims of your centre that we're launching today. For your stated second and third aims are to develop the capacity of Scottish higher education institutions to carry out high-quality research relevant to the needs of the Scottish criminal justice system, to build the capacity of crime reduction in Scotland and thereby establish the international reputation of criminology and criminal justice in Scotland. I don't know how it is currently in Scotland, and I wouldn't dare to comment on it. But few academic criminologists in England and Wales engage closely in criminal justice policy debates in the media and elsewhere any longer. And to the extent that they do engage, their observations are overwhelmingly critical. But what we've got to do, and it was referred to earlier, is analyse why, as Paul Wiles has stated, they've lost the knack, as he put it and as you quoted at the beginning. What is happening is that as a result of their increasingly critical stance, our Whitehall politicians are increasingly mistrustful of academic criminologists in particular and of academic research in general. They generally consider academics to be naive, hostile witnesses. Ivory towers are frequently cited. There are, of course, a few exceptions to this rule, but they are exceptions, and they generally comprise persons, of whom there have been very few, who have crossed the insider-outsider boundary. Persons like myself and Paul Wiles who've crossed the boundary to become insiders for a spell, but more typically those who were in the Home Office Research Unit who've become outsider researchers and joined the Academy. To the extent that research is promoted by government in Whitehall, there is increasingly a preference to engage with what are perceived to be the less critical and more compliant management consultancies. There's also been a retreat into fallacious social science optimism and spurious, allegedly value-free methodology. Let me illustrate. The Home Office's crime reduction programme, and there are one or two people present who are intimately knowledgeable in this scene, placed over-optimistic expectations on the speed and certainty with which new what works evidence could be assembled. The result of the research, that big programme, the biggest research programme that there's ever been funded by government in this country, was very disappointing. The Home Office response to the disappointments, and we haven't space to go into why the results were disappointing, the Home Office response was to try to improve the methodological rigour of the evaluative research commissioned by the Home Office. This involved ensuring, A, that the evaluation designs enabled tight causal attribution to be made, e.g. through randomised controlled trials or powerful quasi-experimental design, and B, that evaluative reviews restricted themselves only to considering such studies. This inappropriately narrow model of evaluation ignored the cumulative nature of criminological knowledge building and the way in which middle-level criminological theories are constructed on a foundation of both evaluative and descriptive research. Further, the approach ignored the degree to to which the effectiveness of crime control strategies is dependent on the context within which they're implemented. These contexts tend now to go unexamined and are accepted by default, while research commissioned or mounted by the Home Office tends to focus on lower-level issues about the tactics needed to implement these policies. In other words, government research tends more and more to be focused on the construction not of strategic but tactical knowledge. It ignores important middle-level issues about the conditions under which people comply with or ignore the law. And this reductionism has done much to drive a wedge between government research and academic criminology. It has led to a considerable disengagement from policy issues on the part of academic criminologists. This process has, of course, been exacerbated by unintended consequences of the contract culture to which policy research is now exposed, coupled with over-anxiety within the Home Office about the publication of any research which has the slightest potential for creating bad political news. Researchers contracted to the Home Office are now routinely placed under pressure to present results in the most positive way possible, and the Home Office's track record in timely publication of research on criminal policy is very poor indeed. For all these reasons, I think it's important to re-engage academic criminology in criminal policy. This is going to be a difficult process. It's going to require considerable give and take on both sides. But I think personally that it's going to be more easily achieved in Scotland than in England and Wales, because I suspect that the destructive dynamics that I've set out have gone less far in Scotland than they have in England. And because I know from past forays across the border that everything is so much more intimate in Scotland. Everyone here gets to know each other, or if they don't, there's no excuse, because they can. It's for this same reason that while I was at the Youth Justice Board, I developed a consultative group for youth justice in Wales and got close to the Welsh Assembly ministers and their senior advisers. Of course, the Welsh Assembly takes the view that it should have constitutional responsibility for both policing and youth justice, and I think personally that they'll eventually get it. But in the meantime, my message to the Welsh was, let's try and do something truly radical in partnership together in Wales, of the sort that would be difficult in England. And I'm pleased to report that there are some green shoots developing as a result of that initiative. Can I suggest a process of engagement that might be possible here, and which I know from experience can be creatively constructive? In the 1980s, I was part of a regular small discussion group comprising both insiders and outsiders, that is, civil servants engaged in policy formation and academic researchers. The existence of the group, which was established by someone who many of you will know, David Faulkner, then a Deputy Secretary as they were known in the Home Office, subsequently became rather widely known because its activities were subsequently written about by Andrew Rutherford. We met about once a month, and we took it in turn to do presentations for each other about policy-related issues that we considered important. The group was confidential, and it was mutually educative, but we learned to trust each other. The insiders talked about live issues in the office, as the phrase goes, and the outsiders raised matters which, in their judgment, research had something to say about. Mutual respect and confidence was built up. Advanced warning was given about matters about to arise. I doubt in the current contracting climate that it would be possible to have such a group today, and it was said to be unprecedented then. But I've noted from what has been said earlier that you have core funding for a period, and I was extremely encouraged by Bridget Campbell's opening remarks about what she hopes will emerge as a result of that core funding and the partnership with the Scottish Executive. Because I think there needs to be much more dialogue about policy-related research